Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Happy Saturday to you. We are coming to you on a pre-recorded episode this time. I am currently out at Emmaus Village doing a live ghost hunt, and the last time we were there, we had absolutely zero Wi-Fi. Krista was able to get on her phone, but that was even spotty, and she's got really good reception, so that was spotty. So we're going to not even try that. And but I wanted to get you guys some kind of content. So we have a great show tonight. We have Jim Quirk backstage. He has his podcast on YouTube, and I have it listed here, other places that you can find it if I can find where I had it. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitch, and YouTube, and wherever else you can find podcasts. And he will update that list as well. The show is called the Quirk Zone. It is going to be a fantastic talk about UFOs and all kinds of fun stuff. That's one of my favorite topics, UFOs and ghosts and stuff. So we will get into that in just a few minutes. But I want to remind you guys, stay tuned next week. We're going to have BJ LaPier. I know you've seen her in chat. She will be on the show talking about a lot of her UFO, ghosts, Bigfoot, and all kinds of strange encounters that she's had on her own property. So that is going to be something to see. Make sure that you have the notification bell on for that. All right. So without further ado, let's bring out Jim from backstage. Jim, how you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Nice to meet you. And a mutual friend of ours, T-Bone, who's in both of our chats, recommended that I reach out to you and get you on the show, and I'm certainly glad that he did.
Yes, Mr. T-Bone is a regular commenter on my podcast on the YouTube version, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I'm noticing a northern accent coming from you. Where are you located at?
I'm living in Pennsylvania here on the eastern side. I mean, this is the way I guess there's nothing I could do about it. I guess this is how I grew up. Everyone around here talks like this.
I love the accent. I thought I was going to say like Minnesota or someplace like Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin or something, or even Canada. But I love that accent. I was down in Tennessee a couple weeks ago, and I come home talking with the southern accent. So it was kind of. So by the end of this show, I'll have a northern accent, and I'll be weird. So again, welcome to the show. Your show is the Quirk Zone. And I mentioned Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Stitch, YouTube. Where else can they find it? And if you could tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, actually, it's the YouTube channel is called Quirk Zone, and the podcast itself is called Extraterrestrial Reality, and that's the name of the podcast on Spotify as well. And it's also available on just about all the other platforms. Spotify and YouTube are the only places where you could watch the video version of the show. But I've been doing it for about 4 years now, and I'm loving it. I think it's necessary. I think more people need to be doing this. Actually, if we're going to get to the truth, we need to get the truth from the government on this. They need to come clean. Finally, there is evidence out there that shows that we are most certainly not alone at this point. And I think it's important that a lot of us out there keep beating this drum and try to get because I think the world needs to know about this. I believe the scientific community, most importantly, needs to be look at this as a serious subject and forget about this stigma. There should be no stigma at this point based on everything that's been going on especially over the last several years. And we're at a point now where it's time to move forward and forget about this covering this up continuously like this. It's time to move beyond that, I think.
I 100% agree. And I think we're all looking forward to the day that the truth actually does come out. I don't know when that'll happen. I don't know how it'll be received, but I mean, obviously something needs to come out and let the general population know that yes or no, we have alien aircraft. Yes or no, there is stuff flying around in our atmosphere that could possibly pose a threat to our safety and stuff.
Definitely, no question about it. There's just so many different aspects to this phenomenon that I think are fascinating, and you would think that the scientific community would be very much interested in trying to study these things if they were taking it seriously. I mean, but obviously, because of the stigma, which is starting to fade, as I believe, as we
Mhm.
move forward. But I think that at some point in the future, you will see more and more scientists taking this seriously and trying to figure out exactly what is happening here, rather than just a few people. Right? You know, it's more
Mhm.
they need to be involved.
Mhm. I was back when I first started this podcast back in 23. I was kind of I don't know if in the dark would be the right thing to say because I've always kind of followed the UFO phenomenon and stuff, and just never really got into it this much. And I kind of look back at the big cases like Roswell and even the crash of Cape Girardeau, and you hear a lot of similarities with military coming in, swooping in, and taking all the evidence that they collect. And where does it go? I mean, some say it's out in Wright Patterson up in what is that, Ohio? Some say that's near. There's a base near Roswell. Some say it's in Area 51. Um, are you've done this a lot longer than I have, and you've seen the reports probably more than I have. Is that the common thread that these aircraft or whatever is recovered from these sites? They're hidden someplace, somewhere that we cannot find.
I believe that is most certainly the case. Based, there have been too many witnesses that have stepped forward throughout the years. I mean, starting with the Roswell case. I mean, there have been
Mhm.
some great research that's been conducted by people like Kevin Randall, Donald Schmidt, Thomas Carey into this Roswell incident, for instance. And there's like hundreds of people with all different pieces of a puzzle that when you put them all together, it tells a story. And there's just no question that this has been going on, that they've been hiding this for a long time. And there's things that happen after that, of course, too. There's different people that step forward. We just had this Harold Malmgren on his deathbed, basically, tell Jesse Michaels during an interview that, yeah, this is all true. I mean, there's people on their deathbeds that make these deathbed confessions. And then, I mean, what do you have to think of that when this happens
Mhm.
time and time again? That happened a lot in the Roswell incident. There was numerous deathbed confessions made by people who had some level of involvement in that recovery and of the bodies and the craft. And then on their bed, when they're dying, they tell everyone in their family this is what happened. And so there's just too much evidence when you do the research. Books by Richard Dolan, for instance, if somebody's like wants to understand the cover up, I
Mhm.
think you start with there's two books by Richard Dolan, UFOs and the National Security State, Volume 1 and then Volume 2. Those books right there really gives you an overview of how this situation, how this problem has been handled by by the this by the government for all these decades. And he's this guy's a historian, Richard Dolan, and he lays it all out there. It's not presented in any sort of biased way. He's just presenting historical facts related to this phenomenon, or related to this cover up rather. And it, that's where people should start, because there's just no question. And so they are hiding them somewhere. And now we have people testifying under oath before Congress, like Lou Elizondo, and you had David Grush talking about the recovery of not only the crafts, but also alien biologics. And they're saying this under oath, so you don't do that unless you really firmly believe in what you're saying,
Mhm.
because you could go to prison for testifying under oath or for lying. So
Exactly. And then of course you have Bob Lazar coming out about Area 51 and everything, and how we're reverse engineering out there. That's one place that I would love to kind of walk around, obviously the outside of it. You don't want to get caught going inside it, and just kind of experience what that area is like. And there's got to be, with all that security there. I realize that it's a military base, but your normal military base doesn't have that much security in it.
yeah.
They're
Well,
they're they're they have something there. It has to be.
Yeah, there's something going on there. I mean, it could be the development of our own sort of special aircraft and things like that as well. I mean, I think it could these areas could be used as for multiple purposes, and I don't think that all of them are stored. All the recovered craft are stored in one place. I think that they're probably scattered throughout different bases throughout the
Hmm.
country, actually probably across the world.
Hmm.
I would imagine that probably with even with some of our allies, we're working with them. There has to be. This is not just a cover up that's contained here within the United States. I believe that the tentacles reach out across to other countries as well, and I think that there's most certainly an effort by all these countries that are the leaders of these countries to keep
Hmm.
this secret from the public for whatever reason. They know something that we don't know. Maybe I don't know what the reasoning is, and I don't know. I think it's something that started a long time ago, and it got to a point now where it's out of control, and it's
Hmm.
unnecessary anymore. The
Hmm.
cover up is unnecessary. At first, it's understandable, but now we're beyond that point, I believe.
Back in the 50s, 60s, and maybe even the 70s, when you didn't have this much information being passed around via the internet and stuff like that, and far fewer newspapers around, I guess, it's easy to kind of cover it up better back then. Nowadays, you have the internet and how quickly things spread around the internet. So I can see why maybe the government or some entity, whatever, wants to keep these things kind of on the wraps if they are reverse engineering it for their own military purposes to not give any secrets away to any enemies and stuff. I mean, that makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, I think that the biggest reason for the cover up is because of the reverse engineering aspects. I think
Yeah,
that's probably
yeah.
the foremost reason for the cover up, and then beyond that is the fact that okay, we've been lying for 80 years. I mean, they don't want to come clean about that. I mean that would
Yeah,
just sow more distrust in the government that make it even
right.
worse than it already is. So you have that issue, and then there's probably concerns that these people who have been maintaining this cover up that they would go to be prosecuted and possibly end up in prison for keeping
Hmm.
this from the American people. I'm of a different mindset, however. I don't know if that's a good idea. There was in that UAP Disclosure Act that ended up getting gutted a couple of years back. There was language in there that provided immunity to these people responsible for this cover up, and they didn't want this to pass, obviously. And for what I think, if that would have passed, it makes it look like, oh, there must be something being covered up. So that's why they didn't want it to be passed. They don't even
Hmm.
want to go there yet. But I do think that when it does come time, I do think, and this is probably not a popular opinion, I think they should be granted immunity because the people who started this cover up, they're all dead. They're long dead. And this thing just, morphed over time and people were brought in. They didn't know what they were being brought into at first, obviously. And they're
Hmm.
told something that this is why it needs to be kept secret. So it becomes like a cult almost. And,
Hmm.
and so I don't know how we could blame the people who are maintaining the cover up right now. I think what we do is just to get over this hump, we grant them immunity and then we move forward beyond after that. That's how I see it.
Clean slate. Forget about the past several years. You guys, whatever information was brought out, we're starting a clean slate here. This is what's going on. That's kind of what you were saying, and that makes perfect sense to me. But the thing, like you said before, there's so much mistrust in information that's being put out. Do you think when they come out, people are actually going to believe it?
I think, yeah, I think it depends on how it's presented. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, I've heard stories
Yeah.
before when this was thought about in the past that they thought about having like a train travel around the country with actual remnants of bodies and crafts, so people could actually,
Hmm.
visit the local train stop where it stops in their neighborhood and check these things out themselves with their own eyes. There was talk of things like that. I don't know how they would do it, but it could be done. I mean, right now, I mean, I've been like, I'm sure we'll get into this later on, but I've been presenting absolute, as far as anyone should be concerned. I think it's absolute proof of this alien presence, and I think if it was brought forward before Congress, then this would. We could you'd be putting the Department of Defense on the spot. They would have to provide some sort of an answer.
Hmm.
And so I think we're already there actually, amongst the civilians right now. There's evidence floating around there out there right now that a lot of people just are not addressing or acknowledging. And to me, it just seems like it's being suppressed. That's how I view it at this point. It's been out there for over a year now, and it's still, I find it hard to believe that it's not being discussed more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Let's change gears here a little bit real quick. How did you get into this UFO topic?
Well, it started when I was a little kid. Actually, it was in 1977. I was just almost 9 years old at the time, about a month away. And it was late summer. I wake up in the middle of the night. I used to share an attic with my brother Davey, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and the light was on. Sometimes we would sleep with the light on, and the whole room was illuminated. But I had this thin blue blanket over my head. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear this humming sound, this, overpowering humming sound, all like buzzing, like almost like bees or an electronic transformer or something like that. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? But then I realized that there was something standing right by the bed. Right. And it was like, it had a hand. I could see through the blanket. I could see an arm and a hand with 3 digits. The hand only had 3 digits. They were thick at the base and they came to almost points at the tips. And it was just moving up like close to my face and then further away, moving close to my face, further away. And at first I'm thinking, what's this? There's a sound and there's just something standing there. I could see it through the blanket. And I started asking questions like, who's there? I'm scared out of my mind. And there's no answer. It just continues to move its hand close to my face and then further away. And then I peeked out of the blanket. I was afraid. I not in the direction of where this creature was, but across the room where my brother Davey was sleeping. I peeked through the blanket to see him, and I could see he was sleeping, and he was facing toward me. And I started yelling for him, and I noticed immediately that humming sound was muffling my voice somewhat. And then I really got scared, and I started screaming for my mom and dad, and they were just right down below. And nobody was coming, right? I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm scared out of my mind. And meanwhile, this thing is standing right by the bed and it's just moving its hand above my face and then further away. So then I just resorted to my prayers. I had no idea what was going on. The only thing I could think of was that there's a demon or the devil in my room. At the time, I was an altar boy. There was a church right across the street. I was an altar boy. And so that the only thing I could come up with was there's a devil in my room. I have no idea what's going on. And then I'm just laying there praying and hoping this thing goes away, and it's not going away. So it goes on for like 20 minutes. And then the next thing you know, I conked out. And the next morning I wake up and nothing's there. Of course, my brother Davey, he's not even in the room anymore. He woke up before me. And I go downstairs. I start telling my mom about what happened, and she doesn't believe me. I'm insisting. There's something for like 2 hours trying to explain this to her. She didn't believe me. And there was like one moment where I realized something. I was like, I'm just a kid, and no one's gonna believe me about this.
Right.
And then my dad got home from work later, and I were running out to the car and trying to tell him about it. Of course, he said the same thing. Both of them were telling me, "Oh, it's just a dream. That's all it was." And even though I knew it wasn't, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize either at the time that even if I was an adult and told this story, nobody would believe it either, right? But that's what I was thinking at that time. So 10 years goes by. I didn't know what to think of it. Sometimes I would try to trick myself into thinking, well, it couldn't happen. It couldn't be real. But I always knew it really did happen. There's just no getting around this. I know the difference between a dream, no matter how vivid it is, and reality. And this was reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I was watching a show like sometime in this late 80s, I would say, about UFOs, alien abduction, and then like a light bulb start going on above my head, and then I realized that that's what it must have been. But then it was further reinforced in about 1994. I went fishing with a friend. We went night fishing. He called me up one day, and he's like, he got permission to go fishing at this lake. It was a private community. It was gated, and he got permission to go fishing there. And he wanted to fish at this little pond that was off the lake. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. So he picked me up, and we went to this place. We got there around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. It was, just starting to, the sun's just starting to go down. And we were there fishing. We went to this pond. It was in the middle of nowhere, and we were fishing there for several hours. And it was around 10 o'clock, and I turned around to get something out of the tackle box. And I noticed behind us, where the pond was, there was like an open field with all this tall grass, and on the perimeter was, forest. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that there was these 3 giant like headlights like moving behind the trees, and then they came into a clearing and it started moving toward us. And this thing was only like it was as big as a house, and it wasn't only about like 20 feet off the or 2, 3, and 2.5 stories off the ground, and it came to within 20 feet of where we were. I said to my buddy Scott, I said, Scott, what the hell is that? And he looked, and I'll never forget his response. He's like, I don't know. Like the no was elevated. Man, this is like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Right. We're here in the middle of nowhere, pitch dark. It was pitch dark, right?
Yeah.
Except that this big thing coming right at us. And then it stopped. I was within 20 feet, only 2.5 stories off the ground, and there was absolutely no sound at all. And my buddy was actually even closer to it. He was standing under the edge of it, and he shined a flashlight on the bottom of this thing. And right when he did that, I was like, let's get the hell out of here, right?
Mhm.
So we threw all of our gear and stuff in the back of his pickup truck, and we jumped in, and meanwhile, this thing started moving away. Then it came right in front of us, stopped momentarily, and then moved backward in a different parallel direction. And so we're in this truck and we're driving like wildly down this dirt road, and we had to stop because there was at least 20 deer that came running away from the direction where that thing just flew. And we had to wait for those deer to cross the dirt road. And then we drove into this nearby town, and we went into a Dunkin' Donuts. And I remember saying to my buddy Scott, I said, that was a UFO. And he's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not telling anybody. That was his first response. And, naturally. But after that really had me. And so I really started studying it over the years and reading books, and that picked up more and more as the years went by. And that's how I got interested in it.
Interesting. I mean, certainly life experience. I mean, that was incredible as a kid. Did you tell any of your friends from school or anything about it? And
oh yeah. I mean, I told my friends about it. I mean, what are you gonna? I mean,
yeah,
they either took it or left it. Some of them believed it. I mean, that's how it
Yeah.
always is with these kinds of things. Some people are going to believe you. Some people are not going to believe you. It always bothered me at the time that my mom and dad would not believe me when I'm here. I know what happened. I'm telling you, there was something in the room. But again, I can understand their position. Wait, what the hell else are they going to say? So
yeah. You just drink your milk and go back to sleep, honey. Did you have any markings on you after your visit in your room or anything, or
no, see, no, not that I noticed or remembered. I mean, if there were, and I know and noticed it at the time, I mean, I might have not even thought about it. I mean, I was an active kid. I was always out playing, playing down the park. I mean, playing baseball, taking walks. So, I mean, if there would have been, I probably wouldn't have made the connection, even if there were marks. But I don't remember that. No.
And it's interesting when you said all of a sudden you just zonked out, and
Yes.
like when they were finished with you, okay, you can go back to sleep now. We're done, and they just left you alone, and you were completely out, almost like they had you in some kind of, I don't want to say a trance, or something, but something that you just couldn't get up. I mean, did you feel like any kind of paralysis?
No, and that's another thing. Like, I like some people had suggested, oh, that was just sleep paralysis. Like when you talk about this now, amongst the UFO community, some people, oh, sleep paralysis. No, I've had sleep paralysis a couple of times when I was a kid. I know what that is. You can't move. I was actually completely mobile when this was going on. I actually have come to the conclusion that I don't think I was supposed to be awake. I think I woke up in the middle of something, and they were trying to probably put me back to sleep again, and they were having trouble because I had the blanket over my head. Who knows? I don't know. This is just speculation. I have no idea exactly what happened, but I know that there was something there standing by that bed, and whatever it was definitely not human. Again, his hand was whatever that kind of hand that was. I've never seen anything like that on anything. Right. It only had 3 fingers, and they weren't like our fingers whatsoever. And I could also, beyond that, like, I couldn't see it completely, but I could tell that there was something there. There was something like a head or something, a shadowy thing, in the background. There was something there. You could feel it, and I could see the arm pretty clearly. And again, I thought it was a demon or the devil himself. I had no idea.
Yeah. And, with the hands, it could have been them trying to, do whatever to, like you said, to put you back to sleep. And, they would maybe finish what they were planning on doing and maybe it's a good thing that you woke up, or if you could have been abducted or something. I've heard
For all I
stories
know,
about.
I may have been. I mean, maybe they were bringing me back and I woke up, or maybe they're
Yeah.
about to take me and then they conked me out. I have no idea. That's the whole thing. I have no clue. I never got hypnotized. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I want to remember though. I mean, some people suggest, well, why don't you get hypnotized? Maybe you'll remember more details. And then I'm like, well, I already know that there was something there. I don't think I'm
Mhm.
I see these other people who are abducted and they remember these things and they're terrified, reliving this nightmare. Like, would I want to relive that? I think I'd rather keep it the way it is, probably.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you never know what you're gonna open up when you go under hypnosis and stuff, and it could be a scary can of worms. But you hear stories about these creatures coming in bedrooms or houses or whatever, and doing whatever to people, taking them in their spacecraft or whatever. And I talked to one or a couple people actually that have had abduction instances where they've come into the room and they've felt themselves go up through the ceiling and everything. So perhaps you got really lucky and you woke up in the middle of something.
Well, and the other strange thing too about it was this noise, which was constant throughout. I mean, this noise was unearthly. And as you study UFOs, the more and more I study, you come across more and more cases where people say the same thing, like this buzzing sound or a humming sound, like an electronic transformer or
Mhm,
bees.
mhm.
These are some of the thoughts that go through your head when you're hearing that sound, and then you hear these same exact descriptions from other people who had UFO encounters and or encounters with the pilots themselves.
And another thing that you mentioned when you guys were on the lake fishing, you have the triangular object with the three lights, and we see that a lot in different encounter stories. Especially like the Phoenix Lights. I think there was something similar to that as well.
Well, I just
Um,
so you know, I don't know if I was the lights themselves. I would say, like, how they're shaped like regular headlights. So that's what they
mhm,
look like, except they're like this, each one, and they're lined up horizontally like a cross. So, and that was what was facing me within 20 feet with 2.5 stories off the ground. And I'm looking at this thing and not hearing any sound whatsoever. I mean,
mhm,
you realize immediately when this is going on in the middle of it, that this is not right. This must be aliens.
mhm.
This is what's going through my head. The reason I actually said to my friend Scott that, hey, let's get out of here, is because I thought the thing was going to land right there in front of us, and then that we are going to be getting dragged in Pascagoula style, and who knows what. That's what, because by that point, because I was already interested in it, I started, watching some documentaries and things, and I knew about some cases, so I had it already in my head, like, oh my god, we might get abducted right here and there.
Yeah. Um, so you mentioned that this took place on a lake.
Oh, it was on a
Um,
pond off of a lake. Yes.
And you hear stories about, the Tic Tac videos on both coasts, off of San Diego, and actually, I think it was off of down further close to Mexico, maybe, and then out on the East Coast, off Virginia and stuff. What are your thoughts of potential bases underwater? I've heard the same thing up in the Great Lakes as well.
Oh, I think it's most certainly something that's where they're. I think that's definitely one of the places that they're hiding. They're hiding someplace here on this planet, and that's probably one of the best places to hide would be in the ocean. I mean, it takes up a majority of this planet, and there's depth. It's so deep in parts
Hmm.
that we never even explored yet. They could be
Hmm.
hiding anywhere. And besides that, even it doesn't matter where they're hiding under the water. The technology they have, I mean, it would be hard for us to probably detect where they are. Even if they're right in front of you. I mean, they could use cloaking. Who knows what they have at their fingertips to trick us, to uh, make us think they're not there. I mean, it boggles the mind when you think about something that could be millions of years technologically more advanced than we are. But
Hmm.
I think that's what they are. In fact, I met a guy back in the late 1997. That was during the 50th anniversary of the Roswell incident, and there was this. I was sitting in this bar room, and they were talking about the Roswell incident on the TV because it was the 50th anniversary. And I was working at a newspaper at the time, and I was working on a story regarding that, the 50th anniversary. And I mentioned to this old guy, I said, "Yeah, I'm working on a story about this right now." And he says, That's something like that. I saw something one time before, and he told me a story about back in the late 1960s. He was walking his dog. He used to be a security guard for this property where all these old coal mining properties, old coal mining area used to be. And there was these deep pits filled with water, and it was in the middle of the winter time, and the whole thing was covered with ice. And he said he was walking with his dog in this area, and the dog all of a sudden didn't want to go any further. And then the next thing you know, he noticed there was a hole, like a big giant cut hole in the ice. And the next thing you know, this craft came right out of it and was hovering there, and then went straight up in the sky. And he said nobody believed him. Of course, he hardly talked about it over the years, but you hear lots of stories like this where with craft coming out of water, any body of water, all sorts of body of water, lakes, ponds, even water-filled stripping holes, the ocean, all over the place. This is the perfect place for them to hide. There's no question about it.
I totally agree with that too. I mean, I've said for years that there's got to be something under there. I mean, what's the largest area that we really haven't explored on this earth yet, and how many millions of years has this planet been around? I mean, or how many years have we been around? There's no way we can explore everything down there. And as far as you've seen with that submarine that exploded with those people in there, we just can't get down to these depths that others can get, and there's got to be something down there that perfect cover for something. Do you get, I mean, you mentioned that somebody was telling you the story. Do you get a lot of people, once they find out what you do, that they just, I just had this encounter back then? Do you get a lot of that?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're talking to people, you bring UFOs up. Sometimes you start talking to people and they walk away because they think you're crazy. Sometimes you start talking to people and they're really interested and they tell you about their stories. You do get that a lot. In fact, I think a lot of people who show up on, I'm sure you probably experienced the same thing with your channel here. A lot of the comments from people who probably wouldn't have commented otherwise, but they probably heard something on your show that inspired them. You know what? I'm going to tell my little story, and I appreciate that. I think it's great, and sometimes I'll even share some of their stories on the channel, because there's just, when you get so many stories like this, not everybody's telling you a lie, right? Everyone, I don't think they are. I think most people, when you hear stories like this, I think a vast majority of these people are telling the truth about a real experience that occurred to them, a real sighting, a real encounter, and that's how I see it. I don't think all of these people are lying about it. They all seem like very nice, reasonable people, and I know I had my experience, so I know it's real personally, so I believe a lot of these people too.
I have not had an experience, but you can tell the people who are telling the truth as opposed to the ones that are just looking for their 15 seconds of fame somewhere somehow. It's you have the passion in your voice, that you know what you saw, and honestly, who are we to say that no, you didn't see what you saw? That's completely wrong. And that doesn't happen here. But yeah, I completely believe that. And actually, I had somebody send me a video. They were looking out their back window or something, and they noticed something black in the sky, kind of moving kind of in a weird angle really fast and then turning or whatever. You sent it to me, and I was able to slow it down really slow and kind of blow it up. And it's amazing how she saw one little black speck flying through the sky. When you zoom in and slow it down super slow, I saw like 10 different ones coming out of that. And it's just amazing what, people, I guess, don't bother looking up or don't, or take for granted there. Yeah, there's nothing up there. Yeah, right. There is.
Oh, I think a lot. I mean, I think that there's probably things going on right above our heads. Sometimes we're just not aware of it. I mean, I'm not looking at the sky all the time when I'm out and about. I mean, you're just not. I mean, unless you might hear a plane or a helicopter, you might glance up, or you might want to take a gander at the stars at night and just enjoy the beauty of it all, and or whatever. But none of us can pay attention continuously to the sky on a regular basis. So if you do, chances are you're gonna eventually see something. But there's always a chance you might not. I mean, When I think about my experiences, I saw that one UFO up close and personal. That was a one-time event. I haven't seen anything like that since. I'm lucky I was even there. I might
Right.
not have gone if I didn't go fishing that night, then that would not have happened. Now, how many
Right.
people have not seen anything or never will get the opportunity to see anything?
Mhm.
Was the craft, did it know we were there? Did it make a mistake? Oh, we better not go there. There's people there. I mean, I have no idea what the story is. I think it could just be, in some cases, a lot of luck. In other cases, maybe they're looking for you. I don't know.
So you mentioned there that maybe the craft knew that you were there. Do you think some I don't know how to exactly say this, but people that get abducted and have reoccurring occurrences, do you think somehow that they are marked by these entities somehow, and they keep coming
Yeah,
back for more?
I think that some of these people, it seems what it seems like is happening right now is that some people are getting implanted with objects that could be used for who knows what kind of purposes. But one of those purposes could be for tracking purposes, just like we do with wild animals. If we want to track some animal, we'll shoot them with a dart and put an implant in them, right? And
Mhm.
that could be the same exact thing that they're doing to us, and maybe there's other purposes too with it. Who really knows? But yes, I do think they come back. If there's people who have been abducted repeatedly over and over and over. Some of them throughout their entire life, since when they were little kids till they're in their 60s. You read stories like this. There's a lot of reports, and not just one or two people. We're talking many, many, many people.
Mhm.
I think it does happen, and I think that's how they're doing it. They're tracking them probably with implants. That's what. And actually, Jeremy Corbell did a really good documentary some years back
Mhm.
now, called Patient 17, where he was basically documenting the late Dr. Roger Lear's work to remove these implants and study them, and it was very, very plausible and convincing. And I don't know what the other answer is. To me, it seemed cut and dry.
Who was what? And the name is just I can't get this guy's name. What's the guy from Las Vegas? George Knapp.
George Knapp.
He has, I believe it's on Netflix. He has a couple series out there that are really, really interesting. That he travels the world to kind of get information about this stuff. And it's if you really into this, check that out as well. Some great names, certainly to check out with this. Um, Man, I just had one and I completely went right out. That's why I have these headphones in. Hopefully, whatever thoughts I have, kind of the headphones keep them in there. And obviously, it's not working. I talked to somebody up in Alaska who was a pilot up in Alaska, and he sent me some pictures, and I wish I had them handy here. Actually, I might. Kind of want to. Poor planning here on my part. The hell was his name? But the story that he told me one time is he was flying up this route that he flies between, I want to say, Anchorage and some other place. He flies it all the time, and he flies by a dormant volcano. And one time he didn't have any passengers with him at the time. And as he's flying, he noticed, the clouds, passing by, they change shape and everything. But he noticed this one cloud that was not changing shape at all. And it looked almost like a tennis racket with the frame, and it was empty inside. And he noticed something coming out of it, like a possible, wormhole or something that one way for them to traverse back and forth to different realities or whatever. What are your thoughts on one, that the possible wormhole getting here from wherever they're coming from? And then he also said something about coming out of the volcano itself, the possible bases in volcanoes and mountains.
They could be impervious. They could have built craft that could be impervious to the kinds of heat you would find in magma. I mean, shit, who knows?
Mhm.
We don't know. Here's the thing. I mean, the as far as I'm concerned, we know that there is something here. I know that there's something here. A lot of us know that there's something here. There's enough evidence at this point that there is something here. What we don't know is how they're getting around. We can't really say. Like, there's a lot of different theories. Like, for instance, in Lou Elizondo's new book, there was some theories laid out on how these machines operate. site, which I thought was really interesting. Ideas that were developed by Hal Puthoff. So we don't know how they're operating, though. We can't really say for sure, but I don't see, if that's what we're seeing, that's what we're seeing. What does it mean? I don't know. I'm just a layman. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. That's why, again, why I said earlier, I think that we need the scientific community looking at these things and coming up with more hypotheses on what is happening, how these creatures are operating these craft, how these craft operate. I mean, what are they doing? Are they wormholes, or is it something else going on? I don't know, but people are seeing these kinds of things, and that could be what it is. It could be a wormhole until we get some answers from the experts who look at this and study it, and who have PhDs and whatnot. Then we're just going to be guessing. It's going to be more wild speculation, but yeah, it could be wormholes until we get answers from people who know what they're talking about, more so than a layman like me.
One TV show that I love watching, and I'm glad I found it. The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. And you see these ranches kind of popping up all across the country where strange things are always happening. Cattle mutilations, mutilations, just period. One thing that I really like that they do on that show, as opposed to some other shows, is they do these experiments and they show you, granted, I'm sure that's edited down quite a bit, show you exactly what they're doing and kind of showing you what they find. And they've almost collected with lidar shots and measurements of things around that ranch, that there could possibly be a void of some kind right in the middle of that ranch. That could be where things are coming and going out of that. And there's one here in Missouri somewhere called the Marley Woods, I believe, that has very similar instances as what's going on over at Skinwalker Ranch. And I actually did a show with Katie Page. She came on here and was talking about mutilations and stuff. And I'd like to kind of get your take on your opinion on what these mutilations are. Are they? I mean, they're taking these cows, animals, whatever, completely taking some of their organs out, eyes, reproductive organs, tongue, whatever, and dropping them back on Earth, and there's absolutely no blood found anywhere. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, I think my personal opinion, I'm leaning toward that they are using them for food. That's what I think. I think that these creatures, a lot of them have been described, they're insect-like, insectoids, and I think that they're probably using the blood from cattle for food, and maybe some of the body parts too that they carve off using high apparent laser technology, high heat. The wounds are cauterized, eyeballs removed, tongues removed, cauterized wounds are left. So to me, I think Linda Moulton Howe back in the 70s and 80s, she nailed it. This has been already, as far as I'm concerned, this was adjudicated and she won this argument way back then. I mean, that's as far as I'm concerned, because that's the only explanation. I mean, some of the other potential explanations that they're Satanists or predators or the government, none of that makes any sense to me whatsoever. And meanwhile, the other side, the aliens, there's so many different ranchers who are really upset because their cattle are being mutilated, and they'll stake out their property for a few nights, and they'll see lights sometimes. I mean, these kind of incidents happen time and time again. It's still happening. I know I've talked about many cattle mutilations that are still ongoing today on several of my podcasts over the last couple of years, and that's what I think. Some people say they could be using them for experiments. Maybe they're using them perhaps for maybe they use the cow blood for their experiments, their hybridization program that they allegedly are involved with, or for other reasons. But whatever the case, I think to me, I think they're probably using it for food, because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again for decade after decade after decade. If it was some sort of an experiment, that experiment should have been over a long time ago. I think that they're doing it for other reasons, and I don't think it's just cattle. I think that's the only reason we know this is because cattle are, the people are making money off cattle. People aren't making money off wild deer in the woods, or
Hmm.
wild animals running around. So it's probably happening to those too. I mean, actually, there have been cases like that. There was a case that I can't remember where it was at exactly, where there was a bunch of forestry workers that saw, they're watching this group of elk in a valley below, and then they saw this weird object in broad daylight come floating over, and then hovered over one of these elk, and then just the elk just, without any sort of rope or anything, just got lifted up by this object, and the object flew away. And then there were some investigators that looked into this, and they found an elk that was mutilated in an area, not, in the area where they thought that this thing
Hmm.
had flown at. So to me, I think that's what they're doing. I think they're probably using it for food, using these creatures for food.
Yeah, you mentioned other animals. One of the more famous ones is Skippy the horse, I believe is his name, out in was it?
Lady, I think, or I think it was, yeah,
Yeah,
it could have been Skippy was the real name. Lady was the
late.
mistakenly, yeah,
Yeah,
something like
but
that.
yeah, that's the skeleton is out. I think that's in New Mexico or someplace out in the desert somewhere. But yeah, I forgot that way. Make sure you check that out. I bet I've reached out to the lady that owns it and has that property out there to try to get her on the show. I think that would be kind of a cool
Yeah.
talk. Um, you, you get many people reaching out to you to share their stories
Oh yeah.
on the
Oh
air.
yeah. There's been quite a few episodes over the past
Hmm.
few years where some people had some really, I thought were very interesting encounters, and so I would share them on the show and talk about them. Um, yeah, that happens regularly, actually.
What are your thoughts? And this just popped in my head. A lot of times, people are out Bigfoot hunting or whatever, and they see the orbs around Bigfoot. What are your thoughts about that being, associated with UFOs?
I think that there could be an association there. I have talked about this before too in the past.
Hmm.
There was actually several cases. I'm here in Pennsylvania, and there's actually been, I'm on eastern Pennsylvania, but in western Pennsylvania there was some cases back in the early '70s involving UFOs and Bigfoot. People seeing UFOs and Bigfoot at the same time. Several cases, and other parts of the country as well. I don't know what they're, they could, maybe the aliens have an interest in Bigfoot just like they have an interest in us, or maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I do believe though that there is I don't have that absolute proof with regard to Bigfoot,
Hmm.
but there's just so many reports, so many people, so many believable people, that I
Hmm.
think it is something that is real. I think that there's too many. There is some evidence for it. There's been tracks. I know some tracks have been faked.
Yeah,
We know that, but some tracks have to be real.
yeah.
There's fur examples. There's all that kind of stuff. But I think that there could be a connection, but maybe it's just that they're just interested in them, just like they are interested in us. And it could also be this, and I just want to point this out. This is a theory that goes through my head sometimes. The idea that maybe Bigfoot could be who we really are, who we started as. This is just a theory, and basically, millions, who knows how long ago, millions of years ago, tens of millions of years ago, maybe these creatures, these aliens came and they've been experimenting with. They started off with Bigfoot, and right now, that what we are sitting here talking, doing this podcast, we're the end result of that. We're the most up to date. Product of what started millions of years ago. Meanwhile, they kept a stable of the real deal still floating around out there in the forest. And maybe, for all we know, maybe the reason it's been so difficult to prove the existence of Bigfoot, because maybe they're getting protection from the UFOs themselves, because the aliens don't want us to know or understand or test Bigfoot or look at their DNA, because then we might figure everything out. We might have an aha moment, and they're trying to prevent that from happening.
I love that theory. I that makes a lot of sense to me. I love that theory. And I'm gonna even throw one out there as well, that maybe these aliens are us from the future and coming back to possibly, warn us about, don't be doing this. Watch, you see these aliens around nuclear sites a lot. Maybe they're saying, this is something that we shouldn't be doing. So maybe you have that the UFOs that are us from the future, and they have the Bigfoot from our way past.
Who knows? Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know. All we can do is speculate. We don't. That's the whole problem. I mean, one of
yeah.
the biggest problems you have with this is that, I mean, how do I mean, the only way we'd ever figure out what's going on, you would have to have some of these beings sit down with you and explain to you their history. Like, okay, how
Hmm.
did this, what have you been doing? How did you get here? What are you doing here? I mean, you'd
Hmm.
have to have them part of the sit down to explain this, because without them telling us what's going on, we're never going to figure it out by ourselves. And then the whole other problem is that if they ever did do that someday, again, are they going to be telling you the truth?
Yeah.
There's just so many different issues when it comes to this phenomenon,
Yeah.
and they just boggle the mind, and it makes me realize that, wow, you know what, anything is absolutely possible.
And that's why I kind of have a feeling that once it does come out, or whoever says, yeah, we have we have this technology, we have these creatures underground someplace, say in Area 51. I just say that just because I'm wearing the T-shirt. Um, it's so many opinions and so many things have been put out there that how are we going to know? How are we going to believe that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different. I mean, I don't know even know where you start. See, that's what
Mhm.
happens is once you get me like I think this is one of the issues with trying to disclose this to the public, because once you do that, there's going to be a whole bunch of questions that nobody's going to be able to answer, and that's going to freak some people out. They're not going to know the answers to certain questions. Intent. You're all of a sudden people are going to be, who didn't even think about this subject before. All of a sudden, are going to be faced with, oh my God, there are aliens are real, but we don't know what they're up to. I mean, there's all these issues that come with disclosure, and I think that's one of the things that's causing those behind the scenes that, hey, don't do this. I think that could be what's happening too, in addition to the keeping things secret for the reverse engineering
Mhm.
aspects.
And kind of talking about reverse engineering, and all of a sudden we had this boom of technology that for several years, decades. I mean, we were just kind of growing, a little bit, and then all of a sudden, boom, we've grown exponentially. Are,
Yeah.
are scientists that are developing these things really that smart? And I'm not saying they're stupid. They are very smart people. I mean, they're a hell of a lot smarter than I am. But are they really the ones doing this, or are they getting it from someplace else, reverse engineering something? That's one thing that I would really, really, really love to, like everybody else, love to know what's going on and where they're
It
getting it.
seems, yeah, when you really think about it, when I think about the way things were back in the 1970s, when my memory kicked in, I was born in 1968. So when
Hmm.
sometime in the early 1970s, probably 1971, I realized, oh, I'm a human being. I exist. And then you see, from that point on, you start seeing what's available in this life that you find yourself in. And the things that were available throughout the 70s and compared to what's out there now, I mean, this is like science fiction. I mean, if
Yeah.
somebody would have came back with a cell phone and showed you images and video back in 1975, you would freak out. You
Hmm.
would think that you're someone's a sorcerer or something. It would seem fantastic. We weren't even this stuff that they were dreaming up in science fiction. We're beyond that. I mean, you look at the in the original Star Trek series, for
Yeah.
instance, you see the little communicators. That's nothing. That's kids play. I mean, look, we got way better than that
Yeah.
in real
Yeah.
life now. I mean, so it's amazing how fast we've developed. I mean, you look at a TV, for instance, from 1950, 60, or 70 compared to a TV now. I mean, it's amazing.
It's paper thin now, and then before you could hardly needed three people just to lift it.
And
And
yeah,
then
you're looking at closer 420i. I mean, now it's 4K.
Yeah, exactly. And computers. I mean, there used to be such big, massive things, and now you can. Well, hell, you can. This is a computer, really. I mean, you just throw it in your pocket,
Yes,
and
amazing.
yeah. Where is this technology coming from? It's got to be from. Got to get.
I don't
I'm
know.
sure it's help from someplace else. I'm
It
sure it is.
could be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's if I find it hard to believe that we've developed these things that quickly, but maybe we did. But I don't know. And that's the whole. It just seems far fetched at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. you've heard many encounters in your time, whether it's on your show or in life, and people talking to you. Do you have an encounter outside of your own that kind of maybe, I don't want to say an aha moment, or validates something to you that what you saw was real, or something that you just like, yes, this is why I love this, what I do so much.
Well, the case that I've been talking about most on my show over the past year, over a year now, has been the incident in Las Vegas that happened in 2023. Because as far as anyone should be concerned, that case, more so than anything else ever to make itself into the public domain, proves. I mean, when you take in the totality of all the evidence with regard to that case, it proves beyond any doubt that there are aliens here. Beyond anything, all of the whistleblower comments, all of the any of the leaked Pentagon videos, all of that stuff is fine, right? And but that none of that stuff provides that absolute proof. But when you take in all of the evidence associated with the Las Vegas alien incident, it becomes undeniable. There's just no denying it, and no debunker is capable of debunking. In fact, Mick West was offered $5,000 from a crime scene reconstruction expert named Scott Roeder to try to debunk it, and he turned it down. He can't do it. Scott Roeder is a crime scene reconstruction expert out of Ohio who operates this business called the Evidence Room. He has over 30 years experience doing reconstructions of crimes for law enforcement, for people. He's been doing it for a long time, and plus he's also a video analysis expert. And him, along with some members of his team, like a gentleman named Louis Castillo, who's right now studying for his doctorate in video animation. They made determinations that there was video shot by this family on the night of 2023, during the early morning hours of May 1st, 2023, that cell phone footage worth was 1 minute and 41 seconds worth, and there are aliens. You could see the aliens. They were able to identify creatures in the video, the same kind of creatures as described by the family members. And then there was other video that show this object before it landed in their yard, captured from multiple different video sources. One video source showed that the object, it was actually filming it with long wave infrared, and it showed that the object did not have a heat signature, which rules out that it could have been a meteor. That means it was cold. And then there was another video that showed that this object, right before it landed in their yard, was throwing off had a oscillating mechanical sound. So when you take into those factors, and then the fact that there was numerous people from 4 different states that had contacted the American Meteor Society right when the incident occurred, to report what they thought was a meteor. One of the people who reported this, a person named Brittany R. from Arizona, she was looking at this object fall from the sky from her position. She was looking north, and when the object went down, she said that there were 2 UFOs that showed up and were floating around the area where that thing went down for at least an hour. And then you have the family members. They said that this object landed in their yard, and right when it came down, right before it landed, you could see that it had blue and green lights, and then when it hit the ground, it became invisible, like it must have employed some sort of cloaking technology or ability. And then the next thing you know, family members were confronted. They were outside working on a truck, and next thing you know, they were confronted by these 2 8 to 10 foot tall alien creatures. That's all they could describe them as. They didn't know any better. One of the witnesses, a teenager named Angel Kenmore, when he saw this creature, when their eyes met, he became temporarily paralyzed. The father, Bobby, he walked out the back door and he felt some weird energy, and he was paralyzed temporarily. And then they all decided to try to go into the yard. They armed themselves, all of them with handguns, and the mother filmed it with their cell phone camera. And as you know, she filmed 1 minute and 41 seconds worth of video. When they walked into the yard, something scared them right back out again. Even though they had handguns, they didn't start firing them. And then they continued to film for a few more moments, and then they decided to call 911. And you heard the 911 call, and then later on, the video was looked at by internet sleuths all over the world for about a year, and it wasn't until March of 2024 where some popular YouTuber named Sherman, he went and interviewed those teenage brothers, Joshua and Angel. And I did a follow-up story on it. And after I did that, a follower of mine, a subscriber named Julia June from New York, had contacted me and said, you're missing something here. There's a face that appears above this fence in this one part of the video. So I did a show about that. And when Scott Roeder, this crime scene reconstruction expert, saw that, he and his team examined the video. They did a thorough analysis on it, a full forensic analysis on it, and they determined that the video was not tampered with. There was nothing, no CGI or anything like that. It was authentic. They authenticated the video, and he also identified that there were things happening there that cannot be explained, including the creature that appears above the fence, and there was another creature that you could see that briefly that chased him out of the yard. So he made that analysis, and he presented that analysis on April 2nd of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that we thought that this was it. We thought, okay, this proves it. This proves that there are aliens. This proves the case. This proves there's no more debate anymore. And he was pretty clear about that. And then from that point on, we did, looked at that video a lot more closely, because there were other instances where faces show up, and there was multiple. It wasn't just the two aliens. There was more aliens there than the people even realized were there. There were shorter ones. There were little grays that looked like, and we have them on video, and there's just no denying this. In fact, when the object hit the ground, the Angel Kenmore stated that what he heard next was what sounded like thousands of footsteps going off in all various directions. And now they only saw with their own eyes the two tall creatures, but there were multiple creatures in the video that we've been finding. It's incredible evidence. In fact, we've been trying to push this evidence into the limelight for over a year now. A lot of the bigger names in the UFO community seem to want to stay away from it. And a lot of people in the government actually sent a letter to the federal. I sent an email to the Department of Defense and Department of Energy in June of last year, laying it all out for them. They never responded. No response whatsoever. This week I sent a detailed email. I actually contacted the office of my local representative, and I sent them a detailed email laying out the situation for them. I believe that this evidence should be presented by this UAP caucus to the Department of Defense, and insist and demand an answer from the Department of Defense to explain this, because no one to this point has been able to debunk it, other than character assassination, or calling you names, or calling you stupid and idiotic and ridiculous, things like that. Outside of that, there's no forensic analysis that challenges the analysis that has been put forward by Scott Roeder to this point. So that means this, to me, as far as I'm concerned, we already have the absolute proof that shows there's something here with this evidence.
Right, exactly. And if you want to know more about this Vegas incident in 2023, all you got to do is search. Just go on Google and search Vegas UFO crash or landing 2023, and there's all kinds of stuff popped out. And I remember seeing that on one of the episodes where they had the body cam of the police kind of walking through with these kids, and I never really noticed anything from that body cam footage. I haven't really looked into detail too much as you have onto this, but I will certainly get your episode and look at some of the footage that you can find online to find out more on that.
Well, just on May 1st, it was it happened right before midnight, April 30th, 2023, and May 1st, 2023, the early morning hours. So actually, I did a 2-year anniversary show where I basically laid out the whole case in chronological order from beginning to end. And you will see, I just did an episode. I was published on my channel, on both my Spotify and YouTube channels on May 1st, about the 2-year anniversary. And I laid the whole case out again. If somebody who was unaware of this incident were to see this and watch it from beginning to end, toward the end, you'll see a lot more of the evidence with the aliens. The beginning is more centered on the object itself. But I basically did it in chronological order. And you'll see, I mean, anyone who looks at that evidence and absorbs the totality of it is going to walk away understanding that, wow, this proves it. In fact, I've received, I would say 90% of the people who comment on both of my channels are amazed at this evidence, and they're shocked that not more people are talking about it, actually.
Right. I really think this is why we do these kind of shows, have you on, have experts in these fields that want to get this information out and want to inform the public, and telling them where to go to see more information about that. People need to know this stuff, whether it's UFO, if it's Bigfoot, cryptids, whatever. People need to know what's going on, and there is definitely something out there with us. that needs to be explained. And that's, our whole purpose of being here, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, real quick, Jim Quirk, the Quirk Zone, and we'll have the links in the chat, or not in chat, in the show notes. I'm hoping if I set this up right, there will be chat to go along with this. Uh, what do you have coming up next on our in the near future on your show that you're excited about?
Well, I mean, there's gonna be definitely more, you know, stories with regard to the case that I'm just talking about. We're still, there's actually not just me. There's other people that are helping me investigate this. There's a gentleman named Chris Lathrop, and of course, I still am in communication with Scott Roeder on a regular basis. We are trying to come up with more information and more data with regard to this case. For instance, like you said you saw the body cam footage of the police officers. Yeah, there were no aliens in that body cam footage. That was only in the 1 minute and 41 second
Right.
worth of cell phone footage that was taken by the family. However, there is body cam footage that has been redacted from what has been released by the LA or Las Vegas Metro Police Department. There was 16 minutes worth of redacted footage blacked out because it was taken in their backyard on the property. We need to get certain people to sign off on this, and we're trying to do that right now in order to get that footage out to the public. I'd like to compare that footage with the cell phone footage. I think that would be helpful. Mm-hmm. And maybe there are maybe the aliens were still there, and the experts will be able to weed them out, when they look mm-hmm. at the video. We don't know. I don't think that there are in the cell phone footage, or it should be in the body cam footage. But that's some of the stuff I'm going to be working on over the next couple of months and more beyond, actually. And also, I mean, I talk about all kinds of different older cases. I think that's important to revisit some of the older cases and talk about those, and also things are going on in the news, like with there's going to be another hearing in Congress. I mean, we have to talk about that. I think it's all of this is important. Everything that's going on is important. There's so much actually going on. It's hard to keep up with it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you look at someone, I tell you who does a really good job is Jack Connor from Cosmic Road. I think that he does a good job of providing, constant updates about everything that's going on. And he's an expert, I would say, on the Peru mummies case. He's probably more so than anyone I've been watching. Jack Connor does a good job with that.
Do you ever find that you have so much information to watch, so many very interesting YouTube channels to watch, there's just not enough time in the day, in the weeks or months to get it all in?
I totally with you on that one. There's not enough time. There's just not enough time.
Yeah.
There's so many interesting shows you want to watch, and sometimes you start watching them and then something, calls your attention away, and then you forget mm-hmm. about it. I mean, there's just, mm-hmm. there's way too much going on right now, but that's a good thing. I think definitely. A lot of it could be noise, but some of it is not, and some of it is important.
Yeah. Do you go around the country at all to check out cases, or do you just have them come to you?
I do a lot of my work from my office, of course, but I do every now and then I go to different places. I actually drove to New Jersey a few months back just to hang out on the ocean there, where a lot of people were seeing these drones. I wanted to see if I could see anything and maybe report on it. Not much really happened when I was there, but it was fun. I did a show. I did a a few minutes from where I was. I actually filmed a lot and then talked about it. So sometimes, and I do have other plans on doing that in the future. I want to get more out and about. In fact, I actually do. Sometimes I go out in the woods and stuff and just do a show out there, just for a change of pace.
Yeah. You mentioned drones, and I didn't want to get into the whole big drone phenomena, whatever that was, government, whatever, UFO, whatever. But I do remember shortly after all that died down, I was picking my son up from someplace, and I was coming home. It was at night, and I was turning off the highway, and to my left, up in the sky, I saw what looked like a drone, just kind of hovering there, and it wasn't an airplane, because airplanes don't just stop and hover, and there was no sound to it, and it was relatively low. It wasn't right above the tree line, but it was relatively low in the sky. And I kind of, the best I could, watched it on my drive home, because after I turned, it was kind of behind me. So I'm driving, looking in the mirror and looking in mirrors and stuff. And, I had my son in the car. I didn't want to get too crazy and drive with my head out the window looking backwards. But yeah, that kind of, I can't remember when that was. but it wasn't too terribly long. It was shortly after all that stuff. And I often wondered, was that a drone, or who was that that was in the skies over St. Louis here? So, and
yeah, I mean, it was funny when I went to Jersey. I'm trying to think where I was. I went to the shore. I can't remember exactly where I was now. But anyway, on the way back, I actually saw some lights out there, but they could have been easily regular aircraft. You really couldn't tell, like out hovering over the ocean. Because in that area, people were saying there was a police officer that said he saw like 20 some drones just flying in from the ocean. He doesn't know where they came from. So I was hoping to see something like that, but I really couldn't say one way or the other what these lights were. They looked like they could be just regular aircraft. However, on the way back, when I was driving back to Pennsylvania, I was on some interstate, and it was a very heavy, a lot of traffic. And I'm looking, it was dark out. I could see this big, like off to my left, I could see this big giant drone just hovering there low in the sky. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, there was really nowhere I couldn't pull over. I couldn't pull my phone out. I would have wrecked or whatever. I was worried about that. But I'm thinking to myself, other people have to be seeing this.
Yeah.
Right. This is huge. There's a big drone. I mean, just hovering there. It looked like a drone. It looked like a big square drone. That's what it looked like. I mean, I'm wondering, one of my ideas is, there were a lot of orbs people were reporting leading up to that. And then all of a sudden, all these people are reporting drones. I'm wondering if maybe the government was sending up them drones as some sort of deterrent or something with regard to the orbs or something. I mean, maybe maybe it was a response. I don't know. Nobody provided any real answers ever.
No, never did. And, just like you, I was thinking somebody else had to have seen this besides me and my son. He saw it too. And, once we got home, we don't live too far from where we saw it. I couldn't see it anymore. And and I don't remember seeing anybody on any social media sites, anybody saying anything about it. So I just I can't go back and find it. So, oh well. But who knows what it was? So
they don't tell us anything. They keep us in the dark.
Yeah, one day, we'll probably all be in a nursing home or wherever, and it'll finally come out. But hopefully it does. But Jim, this has been a fantastic talk that we've had. I really appreciate you coming on. And guys, make sure you check out the Quirk Zone. And I'm sorry, what was the name of the podcast on the other sites?
On Spotify, it's called UFO Extraterrestrial Reality,
right?
And it's called Extraterrestrial Reality, basically. But and I put the UFO in there on the Spotify, so people would, it would be a better chance of finding it, I guess. And then on the other one on YouTube, my channel's called Quirk Zone, and the name of the podcast is called Extraterrestrial Reality.
Awesome. Some awesome stuff over there. So guys, go over there and make sure you check it out, subscribe, and take a look at what Jim has. Very interesting stuff. Just the tip of the iceberg of what we talked about here today. So again, Jim, thank you so much for spending your time here with us. And I really appreciate it. Learned a lot, and looking forward to checking more out on your channel for sure.
I appreciate it. You having me on, Paul. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. No problem. Thanks a lot.
And thank you, T-Bone, for hooking us up. Greatly appreciate it. So, all right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And again, this was a pre-recorded, so we will get back to lives next week with. Make sure you tune in for BJ LaPier coming on about all of her experiences. So, until then, everybody have a wonderful week. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Oop.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.